So what is your goal for those of us who aren't trans to see in your personal journey that you just described?
I don't think, I mean, and it's really, I don't know how much of it is about like other people. I think there's an element, I think there's a big part of actually my transness that other people, what they think and how they treat me matters to me, but it
Okay.
only matters to me because it impacts my ability to live my life. So like personally, I'm not transitioning for anyone. Do
Right.
you know what?
That's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm like, so why is it so important that we all see? I don't understand the visibility part. We have a whole day for us to see visibility. I don't understand what that means exactly, and how what the goal is. What are you wanting us to see? I see you as a person, as a human being, someone that God created, someone who has a potential and a purpose in this life. So, what is it I
But
need to
you
see on this
right.
particular day of visibility?
But you also know me to be a trans person.
But I feel like that with other people. I see people in my supermarket that to me may be trans. I don't know for sure.
Right.
And I don't look at them any differently. They're at the supermarket, just like I'm
Right.
at the supermarket. We're all buying groceries. I just don't
Yeah.
understand if there's something I'm supposed to see that I'm not seeing. Because for me, that person is on their own journey to discover who they believe they want to be,
Yeah.
or who they don't want to be. And unless they ask my opinion about it, I'm not sure that I need to see or even have an opinion or an expression about it at all.
Right.
So I'm confused about
Which
the purpose behind some of the things that I see, or that I'm being told I need to look at, or things I need to experience, or things I need to expose myself to, because I'm like, I don't know that I need to.
yeah, and
Um,
I mean, I wouldn't say that you need to. I think you spoke very eloquently to, I think, the reason for visibility. And because I think you have a unique experience where you've been able to get to know me and we've been able, you know what I mean? Like, and you might not see me, like you're able to see me as more than just being a trans person, which ultimately that's what we want. But mostly like prior to my transition and stuff, I had very negative ideas of what it meant to be trans. I was told that it was all about our sexuality, that we were all like, having to live and work on the streets. We were getting murdered and there was violence toward us. We were abominations to God. Those are all very like not great things. And those were the only messages. Those were the only things I was told about trans people. If I saw them in movies, they were playing prostitutes or they were, victims of domestic violence, or they weren't just like the main character that was like, I don't know, like falling in love or, like part of a rom-com, or were just like, part of any sort of narrative. There's only been one kind of narrative about us. And I think that's the thing that's why it's important, is so that people can see there are so many ways to be trans. And at the end of the day, being trans is just a part of us. But when some people look at us, that's all they see. Like you don't, right? That's great. Ultimately, to some degree, that's what we want. We want to be able to still, like, I still want you to know and understand that I'm trans, but I want to be seen beyond that. And I want to be able to live my life beyond that. I want to be able to leave my house without feeling like my transness is going to cause me to be attacked or pointed at or not get the job, or, like all these sorts of things. But I think people
but
have to start.
would you want to be in any of those situations? And would you want to really work at a job where nobody wanted you to be there? I mean, I wouldn't want to work at a job where no one wanted me to be there
Yeah, I
for
mean,
whatever reason,
yes.
because I love Jesus, because I'm too old, because I eat the wrong foods, or I don't want to work in a place like that. And
Yeah.
I guess people have their opinions on the street, but I would hope that being on the street, there are other people out there who have a moral compass that would say, check that person that was maybe even being confrontational with you, especially now. I can see back in the day, maybe, but now I think there's a lot of shifts that we have to consider.
It's
And
even worse.
pardon?
In some ways it feels worse now, like in my lifetime right now, like specifically in this moment, I am more afraid of being out in public now because people are being unkind to us and they are saying things to us, you know, that I didn't think I was experiencing before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still not like what it was, but
Right.
you know, being able to like, we don't always, especially if you think about like, I live in Idaho, there's only a certain amount of jobs I can get. It ain't like I can go to a different grocery store. I can't go to a different gas station, or I can't, you know, I can try to walk on a different street, but it's just like, you know, my world gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's why visibility is so important. So people can see that, you know, like we're just people, just like everybody else. Like you said, we're just people, just trying to live our lives in a way that feels good to us, not harm other people in the same way that any other person, hopefully, is,
Right.
you know,
Right.
trying to live their life. And so, but we don't always get an opportunity to do that because people sexualize us. They when they look at us, the only thing they see is our sexuality. I don't look at you and automatically think about your sex life. You get to go live your life, and your sex, because you are not seen as a sexual being, you can teach in schools, and you can, you know what I mean? Like queer people are automatically seen as only our sexuality, and there's nothing else about us, and we're not allowed to be seen as more than that. And that's really what a lot about visibility is to see that there's more to us. Yes, our sexuality is a part of our life, just like it is anybody else's, but there is more to us. We are fathers and parents and preachers and, you know, doctors and lawyers, and sometimes we are sex workers, and we are, you know, like all these sorts of things that all people are, you know. And but because of media and everything else, there's only certain things, or even just because of location, you know, a lot of us aren't really exposed to people different from ourselves, um, which is why I think visibility is so important, so we can get to the point where we don't have to get hung up on the fact that somebody's trans.
Oh,
um,
yeah, I get that. You know, my experience has been that the world is full of all different kinds of people, including some of the ones that you've described. But I find, and this is just my opinion, so don't blow me up too bad, anybody. Um, I think that some of that perception of sexuality comes from how we present ourselves. You know, if I'm a 21-year-old in a really short skirt showing my breasts and hardly scantily clad with stilettos on and going down the street, people are going to look at that person in a sexual way. If I'm going down in a business suit and hopefully um, not scantily dressed, that there may be some attraction there, but I don't think I think the perception would be different. There was a time when that wasn't the case. So I think that some of these things, not all these things, and not all people, and I know that there are always those extremes out there. So I get that, but I think on the norm, from what I see and from the spaces that I live and move around in, I feel like a lot of that attention sometimes is brought on themselves, and I don't know what they put on the news so much anymore. I mean, when I see a sex worker, they don't always say they're transgender. The same sex workers that aren't transgender get some of the same horrible attention.
right.
So I feel like you have a valid point, and I think there's some things that we need to be aware of in respect to one another, to just as people. Not there should be no titles. All these titles that we try to put on ourselves and on other people, I feel like is a bigger challenge than any of these other things. And for us to be able to be on our own pursuit, to pursue our own purpose, to pursue our own life and the desires that we have for our life, if people would just stop giving us a box to try and fit us in based on their own opinion, I think it would make things much easier.
Yeah, I feel
Because as
that
much
too.
as we're different, I'm sorry, I just want to finish my thought.
No, go ahead,
And
sorry.
as much as we're different, and as much as we have totally different lifestyles and totally different life experiences, we have a lot of similarities.
Mm-hmm.
As far as how people, you know, treat us, how people are said, you know, I'm obviously older than you. I get a different response from people than I did 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They treat me different. The fact that I'm public, that I love Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I get a lot of kickback from that on both sides of the wall. So that to me is people are trying to shove me in a box
Mm-hmm.
and trying to make me what, and I get a lot of criticism for that. And you know what? It just comes with it. here's the thing. Again, just like with what I was saying to you, those are people trying to fit me into what their opinion of I should be. Same thing as if I have to have my hair perfect and my nails perfect and my whatever perfect. Who's to say how I need to present myself? Maybe I feel just fine in my own skin, and maybe
Yeah.
I feel like I put myself together. So who are you to say? But
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to see me. I'm not going to tell them how to see me, because if they're seeing me in a particular way, I believe that there's a reason behind it. And it's not always about me. I think most of the time it's about them. My bigger worry for you personally, because I love you and because I care about you, what happens to you and anybody, is that I'm worried more about the fear that you live in, because the fear is no place to be. And I think in the spiritual space, fear should be close to non-existence. Where's your faith at? What do you believe in? So for me, I think maybe it's different than you. So I don't walk in fear when people come against me and spew hatred at me, and they do. It's not something I talk about. It's not something I want everyone to know. It's not something I want everyone to protect me from. I've chosen this life. I'm going to live this life. But here's the thing: I'm going to live my life. And you
Mm-hmm.
can have your opinion. You cannot have your opinion. I'm going to wear what I want. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to go where I want. And if I can't get a job over here, I'm going to get a job over here.
Right.
And I'm just going to live my life. So my bigger concern for you and for others who may be stuck in this situation is the fear that they allow themselves to live under. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I want to see. I want to see lifted off. I want to see that go away so that people can just live their lives. All people, no matter where they're coming from, no matter how they want to present themselves.
Right.
So I apologize. Thank you for letting me have my long-winded say, and I'll be quiet now.
Yeah, no, I think it's great what you said, and I think that that's why like a lot of the visibility is important. Like, yeah, it would be great to not have fear, but the reality of it is that there are elements that I do have to be mindful of.
I think there's a difference, though, honey, from being mindful to being fearful. To me, fear is a choice. The minute I fear something, I give it power over me, and I don't want anyone give anyone any power over me except God. And so I don't fear things. If something happens, then I'm just going to deal with it. If I lose my life today, my hope is that I'm going straight to heaven. So I don't even fear that. Do I want to get beat up or embarrassed in a public platform where it's going to be on the news? No, I don't want that to happen. But I'm going to survive, and I'm not going to let that fear dictate the rest of my life and steal from me all those moments that I can have. But it's not easy.
Yeah.
So,
I
and
don't.
you're right. You need to be mindful. You're not going to go in a dark alley after dark and be
Right.
silly. But
Sometimes it doesn't even have to be at dark, but
I know.
I think that's, and it's hard to, I think it's hard to really speak to it because like I understand what you're saying, and that's what, like, I think that's the goal. But like there is a constant, I mean, we just had laws passed to keep us from existing, like people are coming at us, you know what I mean, in very like mean and hurtful ways that can lead to our death.
Mm-hmm.
Very like mental, emotional, and spiritual. It'd be great to, I don't feel like, and this, I feel like this is like, so, and part of it is that some of us don't get to have a God like yours that
What do you mean?
I'm just,
Nobody gets to.
I'm
Oh,
saying
go
it.
ahead. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish your thought. I apologize.
I'm trying to say it from like a point of view, like if I'm speaking to like my past experience with church and everything else, I was told that I was an abomination. I'm still being told that by a lot of the church. So it's like, why would I even try to like, and the reality of it is that even though God is in our lives and maybe we're not afraid, does not mean that violence isn't going to happen to us, and does not
That's
mean
right.
that we're not going to be able to still get jobs or be able to make income in a way that, like allows us to live a life like everyone else, So, and that's not to say that life isn't difficult for a lot of people, regardless of their gender. So, and I think that's part of it, is to be able to get to a place where we don't have, like, somebody being trans is not a big deal. Like,
Mm-hmm.
people are trans, like, okay, so, like, move on. That would be great to be at that point, not at a point where you don't know that. I think it's just like, if like you are a Christian and you want people to understand that there's like that you don't want to be in a box with your Christianity, so to speak. But I think you still want people to see you as a Christian and to like speak to you or be in relationship with you as if you were a Christian.
I don't have that criteria.
No.
My hope is that my life itself and how I live my life lets people know that I love Jesus. And I don't expect people that love Jesus or don't love Jesus to treat me with gloves on.
Right.
You know, I want to
But
be
there's still an
around.
element that you identify with being a Christian. That's part of your identity.
I do. And so as a Christian, I try to perceive and experience people from a Christ-like kind of view. I don't require them to come into my way of living or thinking or expressing themselves. I want to make sure that I encounter everybody in a way that I believe Jesus would want me to encounter them, not by telling them how to live their life, not by telling them what to do, not by condemning them. You know, those are things, but I don't have a criteria for engaging with people or the kind of people that I want to be around. Um, and I hope people see that I'm a Christian, but if they don't, I'm not going to chase them down and make them see me as a Christian, because that's not up to me.
Yeah. We're like relationally though, I think there's a thing.
So I have a beautiful friend that I love very much. She knows that I'm a Christian and she's very much not a Christian. And when I try to talk to her when she's having a rough day to encourage her, she's like, I don't want to hear that.
Right.
And you know what? We're still friends. We still love each other. We still spend a lot of time together and we respect one another. So, and I try to, and I tell her, I don't know what advice to give you except for that I know from being a Christian. Do you want to hear it? So I've adjusted. And sometimes she says yes. And sometimes she says no.
Yeah.
I just want to, I don't know. And I'm sorry, I told you I probably wasn't going to talk very much today. And here I am like blah, 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 all over the place. But
no,
I just want people to be able to be who they are. And I don't want to I don't want to be told, just like you don't want to be told how to live my life, what things I should consider, how I should see other people. I want to have those. Now, I don't subscribe to hate. I don't subscribe to any of that. I think it's horrifying. But I think for us to think that it only exists in certain pockets of society is wrong. And if I think that any of us are less likely to get robbed or beaten up or raped on the street, that's wrong. That's not true. It depends on some of those places where you go. So
it is true, because when people see you as less valuable than other people or less value than themselves, then they feel like they can do things to you. They dehumanize you. So I think there are people who are more vulnerable than other people.
You're right. I'll stand corrected, because I see women being trafficked all the time. I see children being trafficked all the time. I hear about that. But what I'm saying is it's not just limited to a certain sect of people all the time.
Agreed.
There are horrible, horrifying, scary, evil people out there. Mm-hmm. And no matter what we do, I'm not sure I want them to see me, because the minute they see me, now I have to interact with them. Right. I would rather I want to stay steadfast. If I have an encounter with them, I hope that it goes the way God wants it to go. But my bigger fear, I don't want people living in fear. Mm-hmm. Because when we live in fear, you're right, honey, it steals from us, from every area of our life, not just in who we are as a person or how we present ourselves. It steals from our spirit. It steals from our existence. It robs us from the very joy of having relationships with other people. And that shouldn't be. And the physical body to me is different than a spiritual body. A physical body, it's a physical body. When it's gone, it's gone. But I wouldn't want someone to rob my inner self, my spirit, my soul, that very, because that to me is a bigger deal than my body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but our body is a part of us.
Sure it is. And it would hurt like heck to have something horrible happen to it. But I hear the stories of people who have had horrible things happen to their body, that have been in that process, have had a mind transformation that has brought so much peace and joy to their life.
Right.
And, I don't pursue that, and I'm not telling people to pursue that, because that would be ridiculous. But just don't live in fear of it.
Right.
And we're all created uniquely and wonderfully and beautifully. And we need to be able to live uniquely, wonderfully, and beautifully, but understanding at the same time that a lot of people don't want to allow us that beauty. And a lot of times it's because they don't feel beautiful themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't know how any way to build themselves up but to take other people down. But to live in that fear of it, that's what gives them the real control.
Yeah. No, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. You know, how do we live beyond the fear?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's where courage comes in. And most of us, you know, we do that every day just by existing. I hate when people say you're so brave. And it's like, I don't want to be brave. I just want to live my life, just like all of us. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want my existence to have to be brave. And you've seen me, and you know that I've experienced utter joy and excitement about my body changing and this transition and doing, like, you've seen very positive things that I'm doing for myself. Like, I'm having a better experience with my body. And I know you've seen me have a harder time with people outside of me, whether it's my family, whether it's, you know, just being in the world. Like, I know that you've had a very, I think, very special spot in my life to be able to see that. You know, you've been able to see the variation of it all, the good, the bad, the not so great, whatever, you know.
That's what we do when we do life together.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, it took me 40 years to get to a place where I could start to live into this. You know what I mean? And the reason why I didn't is because I didn't know it was possible. And I was in environments that weren't good for it. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't able to get to a place. And now that I am, it's like I just kind of imagine what it would have been like if I, you know, growing up in church, if I would have known that there were people like me, so that I didn't like go through church just feeling like I don't fit here, I don't belong here. There's something about me that's not right. That's not right for church. That's not right for God. And then to go out into the world with relationships and being at home, there's just so many things where, like, I was trying to find this part of myself that was an important piece of me that I wasn't able to just express. You know what I mean? It was something that I had to kind of hide, and many times I hid it from myself even, you know, and I just couldn't imagine how much different my life would have been if I would have known that God could love me sooner. If you know what I mean? Like, if it didn't cause rifts with my family, if it didn't lead to violence, if it didn't, you know, all these sorts of things. So for me, that's what's important about visibility, and what I want to be seen as the trans person who's like living their best life, you know, who's happy, joyous, and free. Because I do believe that that's what God wants for me, and that's what God wants for all of us.
But I don't understand why you want other people to. That's my challenge, and I'm probably just overthinking it. But I don't understand the visibility. Why is it so important that other people see how you're living your life? That's the thing, cause I feel like I don't. There's some things I don't want people to see about me living my life, quite frankly. Right. So I don't understand the whole visit. That's my thing. What's the goal here?
Maybe it's not about you. Maybe it's about other trans people seeing themselves.
So you want to be a role model?
Seeing their I don't know. Please no.
but I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that pointed directly at you. You know, I hope you know that.
It took me 40 years. It took me leaving my hometown. It took me leaving my family. It took me to multiple cities and lots of not so great experiences to get to where I am now, you know, and it would have been so great to not have to leave home in order to ... or to, you know, all these sorts of things, which happens. Like, that happens for all of us for a number of reasons. I personally want to be a part of hopefully alleviating pain and struggle and harm that I experienced. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want people to experience the same harm that, like, I want to try to make my harm matter. and hopefully not something that somebody else is going to have to deal with. It's a way of kind of transforming the pain and the harm and the violence in a more positive way versus just, like transmitting that violence or that hurt or that harm, but actually working to try to heal some of that. There is a comment question. I'm not sure. Dare, I think. Why should we be secretive? Anyone should be able to express their gender and be happy with their relationship without being afraid, without being accused of things or subject to violence.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, very well said. And I think that's the challenge. It's not about, and I don't think you're saying that we need to like be secretive about it, or it's not in the sense of like, why do people have to know, but like, why is, like, I think the challenge on both of us is, why is it an issue?
Right. Why is it an issue?
But it is. And that's the that's the problem for us who are on the tail end of that. It's like, how do we get past this? How can we just live our lives? And sometimes we have to just live our lives by, you know what I mean? Like, and like we have to live. Yeah. And I think that's part of the challenge is we don't get to just live our lives oftentimes in these places. And so that's why it's such a big deal. Mark says, growing up as a gay man, I felt alone in the world until I knew there were other people just like me. I think that's what the visibility means. Yeah.
So it would be more of a finding a camaraderie. It's not geared for people like me. It's geared for people who are looking for